On a chilly morning that marked the 78th birthday of Harold Manson, the old man sat alone on a creaking wooden bench in the heart of the town's quiet Central Park. The sun, timid behind a thick layer of fog, cast long shadows that intertwined with the memories of a life spent in both hardship and fleeting moments of unexpected kindness. Today, however, was different, not because of the years etched in his wrinkled face, but because of the silent promise of change that hovered in the air. Harold's birthday had always been a day of introspection and solitude. Each year, as the crisp autumn breeze began to stir, he would retreat to his favorite bench under an ancient oak tree. It was here, amidst the rustle of fallen leaves, that he pondered the life he had led, a life filled with both quiet triumphs and hidden sorrows. On this particular morning, the park seemed to echo with the soft murmurs of memories. A long-forgotten smile from a stranger, a subtle act of compassion, or even the whispered regrets of a man who had known too much loss. In the distance, as Harold sipped weakly on a cup of lukewarm coffee he'd brought from a small diner, a figure emerged from the mist. The stranger moved with an air of quiet determination, his steps measured yet purposeful. Dressed in a long, dark coat that fluttered like the wings of a silent guardian, the man paused near the entrance of the park. His eyes, though hidden behind reflective sunglasses, scanned the scene with an intensity that belied his calm exterior. Something about his presence unsettled the delicate balance of Harold's solitary ritual. Unbeknownst to Harold, this stranger carried with him a burden of secrets, a dark past interwoven with moments of desperate choices and actions that defied conventional morality. As the man approached the bench, a subtle tension began to fill the air, the kind that preludes the unraveling of a mystery. Harold, with his mind adrift in memories of days long past, noticed the intrusion only when the stranger settled beside him without a word. The sudden closeness felt like a gust of wind breaking the long-held stillness of the morning. For a moment, the two men sat in silence, each absorbed in their own thoughts. Harold's eyes, deep wells of sorrow and wisdom, met the cool, enigmatic gaze of the stranger. It was then that the stranger reached into his pocket and withdrew a small, worn envelope. With deliberate care, he slid it across to Harold, his gesture both humble and mysterious. The envelope, yellowed with time and marked with faint, handwritten symbols, seemed to pulse with an unspoken message, one that promised to rewrite the narrative of Harold's quiet birthday. Harold hesitated, his heart pounding in a rhythm that felt at odds with the subdued atmosphere of the park. He opened the envelope with trembling fingers and discovered a collection of old photographs and a faded letter. The letter, penned in an elegant, archaic script, recounted details of a crime that had shaken the community decades ago, a case that had remained shrouded in silence and unresolved sorrow. The photographs captured moments from that long-forgotten investigation, including images of a young woman, a clandestine meeting at a desolate train station, and a shadowy figure whose presence resonated with danger. As Harold's eyes moved over the contents, a series of emotions cascaded over him. There was disbelief, mingled with a deep-seated curiosity and a spark of indignation at the injustice that had once haunted his town. Memories stirred within him, memories of a time when truth had been buried under layers of deception, when those in power had silenced voices in the name of preserving order. The stranger, silently observing Harold's transformation from a passive onlooker into an awakened participant, finally spoke in a low, measured tone. "Today is not just your birthday, Mr. Manson," he said, his voice resonating with both regret and resolve. "It is also a day for reckoning, a chance to set right what has been left undone for far too long." His words, though gentle, carried an unmistakable weight of urgency and moral imperative. In that moment, the quiet park became the stage for an unfolding drama that would compel Harold to confront a past he had long tried to forget. The revelation stirred something dormant in Harold, a flicker of courage and a yearning for justice that he had thought lost in the shadows of his advancing years. With each word spoken by the stranger, the old man felt the burden of solitude lifting, replaced by a palpable sense of destiny. The photographs and the letter were not merely relics of an old case. They were a summons to action, a plea for closure that transcended decades. Harold's mind raced as he recalled snippets of his own involvement in the case. A reluctant witness, a silent observer whose testimony might have altered the course of history had it been spoken aloud. The stranger's calm presence, paired with the weight of truth in the envelope, created an atmosphere charged with anticipation. It was as if the hands of fate had converged on this solitary bench, binding Harold's destiny to a mystery that demanded resolution. The morning fog seemed to lift ever so slightly, as if acknowledging that the truth, long hidden in the shadows, was finally coming to light. In that silent exchange of secrets and memories, Harold felt both vulnerable and resolute. The old man realized that his birthday was no longer a day of quiet reflection alone. It had become a pivotal moment of reckoning, a call to unravel the mysteries of a past marred by injustice. And as the stranger's final words echoed in the crisp air, Harold resolved that this day, his 78th birthday, would mark not an end but the beginning of a quest for truth, a journey into the heart of a mystery that had haunted his town for far too long. With the envelope clutched tightly in his hand, Harold's eyes shone with a newfound determination. In that fleeting moment, the park transformed from a haven of solitude into the crucible of an unfolding true crime saga. A saga where every memory, every whispered secret, held the promise of redemption, justice, and an unforgettable revelation. The quiet morning, once a testament to isolation, now buzzed with the possibility of change, as two strangers embarked on a journey that would forever alter the course of their lives. The crisp morning air that had borne witness to Harold's awakening now carried him away from the familiar park bench and toward a destination he had never thought he'd revisit. With the envelope and its haunting contents clutched in his hand, he shuffled down the cobbled streets of the old town. Every step echoed memories of a past shrouded in mystery and injustice, a past that had once been dismissed as an unsolvable enigma. Today, that quiet dismissal was replaced with a burning desire to reclaim a truth that had long been stolen. Harold's first stop was the local police precinct, a modest brick building that still bore the faded insignia of an era when the case was actively pursued. As he entered, the hushed murmurs of officers discussing routine matters filled the air, oblivious to the tempest of emotions stirring within one of their oldest residents. At the front desk, an aging receptionist recognized Harold immediately. Her eyes widened, a silent acknowledgement of the secret he carried. With a slight nod, she discreetly directed him to a dusty back room where archived files were stored, a place where the past was meticulously catalogued and, at times, forgotten. In that cramped room, surrounded by stacks of yellowed folders and brittle documents, Harold began piecing together the fragments of a narrative that had once rocked the community. The photographs and letter from the envelope served as his guide, each image and handwritten line a beacon from a time when the crime's raw agony had reverberated through the town. As he flipped through the files, he discovered that the case had involved not only a mysterious disappearance, but also a cover-up that spanned decades. The young woman captured in the photographs had vanished without a trace, and whispers of corruption had obscured any hope of justice. The weight of this discovery pressed on Harold's conscience. He recalled how, in his youth, he had been a reluctant witness, a silent observer whose testimony might have altered the fate of the victim had he mustered the courage to speak up. Now, every piece of evidence he uncovered served as a painful reminder of the broken promises of the past. With each faded document and grainy photograph, the layers of deception began to peel away, revealing a disturbing tapestry of greed, betrayal, and moral decay. Outside the precinct, the chill of the afternoon had deepened. Harold's mind churned with conflicting emotions, dread mingled with determination. As he made his way to the modest diner where he once had lively conversations with those who believed in truth and accountability. There, over a cup of strong coffee and a slice of pie, he met Emma, a retired investigative journalist known for her fearless probing of unresolved cases. Emma had once been a fierce advocate for the forgotten, and though years had passed since she last pursued a story, her eyes still sparkled with a resolute passion for justice. Harold shared the contents of the envelope with her, laying out the photographs and letter on the worn wooden table between them. Emma listened intently, her gaze shifting between the old man and the relics of a story long buried. "Harold," she murmured, her voice tinged with both sorrow and determination. "This isn't just about rehashing old wounds. It's about giving a voice to someone who was silenced. It's time to set the record straight." Her words resonated deeply with Harold. In that moment, the diner transformed from a simple eatery into a sanctuary of accountability, a place where truth, regardless of how painful, was honored above all. Together, they devised a plan to dig deeper into the case, to confront those who had manipulated justice, and to uncover the real story behind the disappearance. Emma's investigative instincts blended seamlessly with Harold's first-hand recollections, forging an alliance that was equal parts personal and moral. As dusk began to settle over the town, Harold and Emma revisited the scene of the crime, a derelict warehouse on the outskirts of the city that had once buzzed with clandestine activity. The building, scarred by time and neglect, exuded an eerie stillness. Its broken windows and graffiti-laden walls were mute witnesses to the events that had transpired within. Inside, the echoes of past whispers seemed to reverberate through the empty corridors. Emma carefully documented every detail, while Harold's eyes searched the darkness, as if expecting to see the specter of the victim or even the shadow of the conspirators lurking in the gloom. In the silence of that decaying edifice, the gravity of the situation settled on them both. The warehouse was not merely a relic of criminal misdeeds. It was a monument to lost chances and a stark reminder of a society that had once turned its back on the vulnerable. As they walked back into the cool night, a sense of shared purpose bound them together. Each step they took was a step toward redemption, a chance to right the wrongs of the past and restore a measure of dignity to a case that had been obscured by layers of silence and corruption. Yet, amid the determination and resolve, a question lingered in Harold's heart. What price would truth demand? The investigation was reopening wounds that had long been healed superficially by time, and the prospect of confronting old adversaries filled him with both trepidation and hope. Still, the moral imperative was undeniable. If they could shine a light on the darkest corners of this long-forgotten case, perhaps they could spark a change that would prevent similar tragedies in the future. As midnight approached, Harold returned home with a heavy yet resolute heart. In the solitude of his small apartment, he revisited the envelope once more, running his fingers over the faded ink of the letter. The words now echoed in his mind with renewed significance, a call to awaken the conscience of a community that had once been complicit in its silence. The realization that his 78th birthday had marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one that intertwined his fate with the pursuit of justice, filled him with a sense of profound responsibility. In the quiet stillness of that night, beneath the muted glow of a single lamp, Harold resolved to embrace his role as a catalyst for change. His journey, fraught with memories of past failures and the burden of unspoken truths, was only just beginning. And as the clock ticked steadily towards dawn, he understood that sometimes the most unforgettable moments arise not from the celebration of life, but from the courage to face its darkest truths. The investigation that had reignited Harold's long-dormant sense of duty reached its climax on a rainy evening that blurred the city's neon lights into a mosaic of color and shadow. Harold and Emma, now inseparable allies in their quest for justice, stood before a weathered door at an abandoned townhouse that had once been the epicenter of the crime's tangled web. The building, draped in the vestiges of a forgotten era, whispered secrets through its creaking floorboards and stained walls. Every drop of rain seemed to echo the pain and determination of those who had suffered in silence for far too long. Inside the townhouse, the air was thick with the residue of past transgressions. Dim light filtered through cracked windows, illuminating scattered remnants of evidence. A shattered vase, a tattered curtain, and, most strikingly, a series of handwritten notes tucked behind a loose brick. Emma's experienced fingers carefully pried the notes free, revealing a series of cryptic entries that chronicled clandestine meetings, hidden deals, and an ongoing cover-up orchestrated by individuals who had once wielded power without accountability. As she pieced together the faded words, a horrifying truth began to emerge. The crime had been not an isolated incident but part of a larger network of corruption that spanned decades. Harold's heart pounded as he absorbed the implications. Each new revelation deepened the mystery and underscored the immense betrayal that had festered within the community. His mind drifted back to that fateful birthday morning, when a stranger had ignited a spark that now threatened to expose a legacy of injustice. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly aligning, casting light on the obscure connections between influential figures, misdirected police inquiries, and a silenced victim whose voice had been forever stifled by fear and deceit. With the notes in hand, Harold and Emma retraced the labyrinthine paths of the investigation. Their footsteps echoed through long-forgotten corridors and hidden basements where illicit secrets lay dormant. Every discovery was a reminder of the high stakes at play, a relentless pursuit of truth that risked stirring up enemies determined to keep the past buried. Despite the looming danger, Harold's resolve only strengthened. He recalled the many times he had felt powerless, a silent witness to a system that had failed to protect the vulnerable. Now, in the twilight of his life, he was determined to transform that helplessness into a legacy of courage and accountability. As the night deepened, they uncovered a final, damning piece of evidence. A ledger meticulously detailing financial transactions that implicated several prominent figures in the conspiracy. The ledger was a testament to greed and moral decay, its ink a permanent record of the sins committed in the shadows. Emma's eyes widened as she recognized names that had once been revered in the community, now tarnished by their complicity in the long-forgotten crime. The gravity of the revelation struck them both. This was not merely about reopening an old case. It was about reclaiming the dignity of a victim and rectifying a narrative that had been deliberately rewritten by those in power. In a small, cramped office far from the prying eyes of corrupt authorities, Harold and Emma convened with a trusted group of individuals, investigators, legal advocates, and members of the community who had long harbored doubts about the official version of events. Together, they mapped out a plan to bring the evidence to light, ensuring that the truth would no longer be relegated to hidden files and whispered conversations. As they worked through the night, the once cold and indifferent documents were transformed into a clarion call for justice, their revelations a spark that threatened to ignite change across the community. Throughout this process, Harold's inner monologue was filled with reflections on the nature of truth and the cost of redemption. He recalled the many lonely birthdays spent on that same park bench, the silent witness to the slow erosion of hope. Now, on the cusp of a long-awaited reckoning, he understood that true justice required more than the exposure of wrongdoing. It demanded a collective moral awakening. In the face of overwhelming corruption, the act of seeking truth was both an act of rebellion and an affirmation of the human spirit. As dawn broke, The first rays of sunlight crept into the office, mingling with the resolute faces of those gathered. They had set in motion a chain of events that could not be undone, a transformation from darkness to light that would hold even the most powerful to account. Harold felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment and solemn gratitude for the opportunity to make amends for the past. In that quiet moment, as the city slowly stirred awake, he realized that every act of courage, no matter how small, had the power to change the world. With the evidence secured and the story ready to be told, Harold prepared to step forward and share his journey with a broader audience. His life, once marked by solitude and regret, had become a testament to the importance of confronting painful truths. The moral imperative was clear: never allow injustice to remain buried beneath layers of silence and fear. Instead, let the light of truth guide us toward accountability and redemption. As the final details were being finalized and preparations made for the public unveiling of the case, Harold paused to reflect on the journey that had brought him to this pivotal moment. His birthday had transformed from a quiet day of reflection into a powerful symbol of resistance against the forces of corruption and apathy. The stranger who had set him on this path, the loyal allies he had found, and the legacy of a silenced victim were now interwoven in a narrative that demanded to be heard. And so, dear viewers, as we conclude this saga of mystery, moral introspection, and the relentless pursuit of truth, remember that every story has the power to inspire change. If you found this journey compelling and thought-provoking, please subscribe to our channel, like our video, and share it with those who believe in the power of uncovering hidden truths. Let's stand together in the fight for justice and ensure that no story is left untold.